Okay. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Rabbi Barbara is off. I believe it's the CCAR convention this week. So I will be doing the full things of Havdalah this week and next week. So when you sing the blessings, you can sing really loud when you do it, or you can put, mute me if you don't want to hear that. I actually had something this week where I was doing a Shiva Minyan, and the son of the person who passed away is a professional singer. He sang opera in New York City, and I had asked him originally if he wanted to do anything, and no. And then the third night he asked if it would be okay if he did Amalei Rakamim, and it's like, no, right? Yeah, I should croak through it rather than listen to your beautiful voice. No, so I didn't say that to him. I just said absolutely go ahead, because he did his beautiful voice. So we're finishing up the end of Shabbat here, and I have a story that actually takes place on the evening when Shabbat first starts. It's about Herschel the trickster. Okay, so there's always tricksters in a lot of folk tales and stories because it's always kind of fun. We always kind of like someone who manages to be clever. The problem was he was often poor and hungry, and he was always scheming to find a way so that he could get dinner free at somebody else's house. Some of us who do all our own cooking now can actually understand the desire, not because we're poor, but to have someone else do cooking. But he, in his case, he, really needed the food. He knew that he sort of looked like a big bear with a shaggy beard and ragged clothes because he didn't have any money to buy new clothes. So when people saw him approach, and they knew, of course, who he was, because this was a small town, they would cross the street or try to get away from him. They also tried not to be engaged with conversation for him because they were always afraid he was going to ask for money or a favor. When he knocked on someone's door at dinner time, sometimes people would say, "Who's there?" And when Herschel would say, "It's me, Herschel," the person would call out, "Nobody's home, come back tomorrow." Which was not very nice, but he had no choice but to leave. Now, Herschel knew that people stayed home on Shabbat to have a big dinner. So that was a time that he figured he would be able to eat well. After all, people are supposed to invite guests to the Shabbat table. So one Friday night, after his congregation had returned home from the synagogue to welcome Shabbat, Herschel appeared at the home of one of the wealthiest families in his town. As he walked towards the large house, he could already smell the chicken soup, the roasted chicken, the noodle and potato kugels, the carrot simmus, the apple compost. Oh, his mouth was just starting to water at the thought of all that wonderful food. So Herschel got to the door just as all the guests had entered the house. But when Meyer, the owner of the house, saw Herschel, he rushed over to kind of close the door and said, "Herschel, you should have come a little earlier. Why did you dawdle after the service? You came just too late. My table is full. I'm sorry, there's no room, and I can't, there's just no space to put you in there. So good job as to you," he said, and Meyer closed the door with Herschel standing on the other side. Now, that was not the right thing to do with Herschel, because he never took an insult lightly. When someone insulted him or rejected him, the first thing that went through his mind is, whoever does that will soon learn a lesson. So he immediately began to think about what he could do and how he could handle this, because that was kind of nasty, So he went to a friend's house and borrowed all of his finest clothing. When he was dressed in well-tailored clothes, even Herschel kind of looked like a nobleman. So he returned to Meyer's house and knocked on the door. Meyer himself answered the door. Now, when he saw Herschel all dressed up in that elegant clothing, he opened the door wider and said, "Herschel, we've been waiting for you. Come in, a good Shabbos to you." So Herschel was brought to the table, where he noticed there was plenty of room and extra chairs. So the table was set beautifully. There was fine china, crystal goblets, beautiful shiny silverware. The gefilte fish with horseradish and the chicken soup with noodles had already been served. The servants put the dishes in front of Herschel so he could catch up with everyone else, but Herschel waited until all the food had been placed on the table. Soon the roast chicken, the vegetables, and the kugels arrived. Herschel scooped up the food and one by one started filling his pockets with them. The fish went in his front vest pocket, the roast chicken and the potato kugel in his jacket pocket. More chicken and the noodle kugel were stuffed in his pants pockets. He put the vegetables in his inside pockets and stuffed the carrots in it, up his sleeves. Then he took the chicken soup with the noodles and poured some into each of his pockets. Each time he did this, he slipped like he was actually eating the food and laughed a little louder. Now, of course, everyone sitting at this table was aghast. I mean, here's a person feeding his clothes, right? Putting it in his pockets, putting it down his shirt, putting it everywhere. Finally, Mayor couldn't take it anymore. He jumped up, his mouth was open wide, and he started screaming, "Are you Meshuggah? You dressed up like a gentleman and had tricked me into thinking you could eat like a mensch. A dressed up ignoramus remains an ignoramus. What are you doing, you fool?" But Herschel wasn't insulted because he knew his actions had hit the mark. So he started laughing and very calmly said, "What am I doing, you asked? When I came to your house dressed in my torn beggar clothes, you didn't invite me in for the Shabbos table. But as soon as I came back dressed like a gentleman, you invited me to be your guest. My clothes made all the difference. Since they were the ones who were invited in, not me, I'm feeding the dinner to my hungry clothes." So you need to be careful when you sort of go after someone like that. Now, 3 weeks from tonight is Passover. So the next 2 weeks, we will be having Passover stories to get us in the mood. One is that I really like is a version of a regular old American story that now has a Passover twist. And I will be repeating the Passover story that I did last year because it's one that I particularly love. And I think the lesson that it teaches is worth hearing every year. I mean, because if we can tell the story of the Exodus every year, we can tell other stories. So now I'm going to, let me see if this Control C. Nope, I need to actually, okay, I need to go back and copy this. Control C. Oh, that's what I was doing wrong. I need Control V. There we go. And the blessings, the Havdalah blessings, are in the chat for everyone. I was telling it to copy, not to paste. All right, and those of us who have a candle can get our candles lit there. And we begin with the blessing, excuse me, over the juice. Die, 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 die. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen. Die, 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 die. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim borei minei v'samim. That always makes me cough. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei me'orei ha'esh borei me'orei ha'esh. Lai dai da 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 dai 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 da 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 dai 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 da 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 dai dai da da dai da 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 dai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol ben or l'choshech ben yom hashvi'i l'sheshet tamei hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol. And as we end Shabbat, where we separate the holy, or actually a separate time away from regular time, we can take one last minute to enjoy part of Shabbat and then put our candle blessing out, our candle out in a grape juice or wine. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishvi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimhera V'Yameinu, Yavo Aleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David. And I invite you to unmute so that we can sing Shavua Tov together. Shavua Tov,
Shavua Tov,
Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov,
a good week.
God's mercy and
May
gladness
gladness
joy
reign
and
and
peace.
peace.
A
A
good
good week,
A week
week
of
of
peace.
peace.
may
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 gladness
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 reign
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 and
and
joy
joy
increase.
increase.
Shavua Tov, everyone.
Shavua Tov.
Upcoming things are, there will be services next Friday night. Rabbi Barbara will still be away then. There will be Torah study in the morning that I will be leading, and then we will have Havdalah again next week. As I said, we will be starting with a couple of weeks of Passover stories, and then after 2 weeks, then it will be actually Passover. So we're going to be skipping, I believe, according to what Rabbi Barbara said, we will be skipping because some people will be involved with the second Seder if you do a second Seder that night. So rather than have it. Plus, it's actually not when you go from Shabbat to a holiday, you actually do Kodesh LaKodesh. You don't do a whole thing because you're going from holy to another kind of holy. So we will say goodbye to those folks on Facebook, and I hope to see them next week.